everybody, this is Brendan here with Common Motor. That's common-motor.com on the internets. And today we're going to dive into the headlight bucket wiring on this Honda CB350 to take away your fear and anxiety of the electrical mystery that hides inside the headlight bucket. Stay tuned. What we're looking at right now is what we call the bird's nest. Some people might call it a spaghetti bowl. This is what's behind your headlight inside the bucket. And all the Hondas from this era, whether it's a 175, a 350, 360, 450, etc., Honda did this. They kind of made all the wires come together in one central spot for the most of it, and that is inside the headlight bucket. Now this is a merger of the main harness, the wires coming out of both the left and right handlebar switches, and also wires that go up to your gauges. Now on the 350s, kind of everything merges right here inside the bucket. On bikes like a 360 or 550, you also have wires that exist under the fuel tank that also has some merging there. So, you know, a lot happens here, but there are some bikes that have some other locations where those mergers happen. So this is the great crossroads of the wires. What we're going to do right now is we're going to take it all apart and put it all back together. We're not going to document it along the way. I want to do this because there's a lot of fear and anxiety about taking this kind of stuff apart, and I want to show you that it's not as complicated as you might think, and you might have to do this on your bike. So I'm just going to start taking things apart, and we'll go. I am going to take the headlight off first. I don't want to drop the lens or break anything, so I'll just go ahead and disconnect that here. There, there, headlight out of the way. Now we just start unplugging things. Unplug that, unplug that, unplug that. Now that we've taken all the wires apart and presumably push your anxiety to the limit with electrical, I'm gonna take off the headlight bucket so we can actually show you all the different wires and how they organize and come together, and we'll actually plug everything together without the bucket in place so we can see how they all merge together, and then we'll put the bucket back on, and we can do this in a little bit more orderly fashion than even the factory did. Now it's always going to be a spaghetti bowl, but it can be a little bit more organized spaghetti bowl, and as you understand what's going on, it'll feel a lot less intimidating. So let me pull the bucket off, and then we'll look at how all this stuff does what it does. Okay, the headlight bucket is off, and I just want to point out a couple of details on this before we move on to the wires. The Honda headlight buckets are plastic. This one's in good shape. Doesn't seem to have any cracks in it. There are these metal spacers that came out from inside here, and these specialty like ground nuts for the ground connections here that hold it on. And then up top here I have that your high beam indicator. Now not all buckets have the high beam indicator in the top of the bucket here. Some of them have it up in the gauge cluster, just depends on the model of bike. But that's that right there. And if you find yourself in a situation where the headlight bucket's trashed, you want to upgrade to something a little bit nicer, we do have a great replacement bucket made out of metal that pops in place, but you're going to have to do the whole exercise of removing the bucket and taking this stuff apart and putting it back in there. So if you're doing a headlight swap, you have to deal with the bird's nests. All right, now that the headlight bucket is removed, we're going to start identifying the different groups of wires before we actually get into identifying what each wire is in the system. I'm going to take the turn signals and I can kind of push them out of the way, pull the wire out of the way. This has a tracer on it that's orange for the left side, and this one has a tracer on it for the blue, the right. You see that? All right, those are out of the way. Let's start with the gauges. How about this bundle right here? Okay, we got a gauge bundle with a power wire and a ground. We got this other gauge bundle here, which has a lot more going on because in the gauge face we have, you know, turn signal indicator, neutral light, some extra information there. So that's a different bundle. That's a bundle. We can kind of put those out of the way. What's this bundle here? Take it out from behind the cable. All the Honda, you know, wires go through the handlebars. I can see that this bundle here is the bundle of wires for the right-hand switch box right here. So I'm going to put that towards the right side, kind of out of the way. And then we got another one of those. And this is going to be the wires for the left-hand switch box. I'm just going to bring that out of the way as well. And what we're left with is this. We got one more. This is our wire that goes to our brake light switch. Since this is a drum brake bike, it has a switch up here for the drum brake. That's what that is. Right there in that group. And then the big group, that one goes over here. Let's put that behind that out of the way. The big bundle here, this is the main harness wire. This is the main harness bundle. And already you can see just by separating them out, there isn't as many pieces as it might seem because we only have, all the wires are grouped together with some sheath. So just a few things, you know, we got ones coming off the gauges, turn signals, switch boxes, main harness, and in this case we happen to have the one for the brake light switch as well. So most of the bikes, regardless of model, are going to have a very similar setup. And as we identify the wires, Honda uses very common wiring codes or wiring colors across all the bikes. So even though this is a 350, most of the information on this bike is going to translate over to the other models, the 175s, 200s, 360s, 450s, 550s, 750s, etc. So it's a lot of commonality there. So let's start identifying the different wires and start plugging some of this stuff back together. I've kind of spread out the wires here again, like a flower blooming, and they're in no particular order. It's just kind of how the wires were routing outside of the cable housing, and everyone's gonna be different because of how they're made, but I just want you to be able to see, like, again, how kind of clean it can be if you kind of lay the wires out this way. And we're gonna start identifying these wires here and what circuits they go to. We'll just make our way around the flower here, and you'll see how that relates back to the other assemblies that we're going to plug into it, because this is kind of the main junction here. This is like Grand Central Station for all the wiring to come into is right here. So let's start with right here, this one. Okay, solid black wires. You're going to see a lot of these in the wiring harness. This is 12 volt positive. This goes straight back to the key switch, and it has multiple terminals on it because there's multiple things that are going to plug into here. That's a four-prong terminal. So we'll put that away. What's this one? Green with yellow stripe. This is for the brake lights. Brake light switch right there. Green with yellow stripe. This is light green. Kind of a light green, not blue. This is for the horn. Brown with a stripe, white stripe on it. This is typically for the gauge lights. Light blue, it's definitely a light blue. This is going to be for turn signals on the right side of the bike. Orange, turn signals on the left side of the bike. Again, multi-plug connectors on the end right there. Brown, this is running light to go to the tail light, not so the tail running light, but not the brake light. Black wire with a white stripe. This is 12 volt power positive to the coils from the kill switch on the right hand control. Gray wire. This is connects on to the battery This is the flasher relay. This is what goes to the flasher relay, from the flasher relay into the switch box for the left and right turn signals. Solid kind of forest green. In fact, we have two of them here. These are ground. Green is ground, and Hondas happen to have a ground circuit on the bikes. So it's important to know that green is ground and black is 12 volt positive, unlike American cars where red is positive and black is negative. So green is ground, which is negative. We have a yellow right here. This is AC power from the stator coil. We have a white that has a half clear, half yellow tube on it. This is the other half of the stator coil wire. And what we're going to do is we're going to jump these two together. In fact, let's just do that now. This is the white-yellow mod that we talk about all the time. We have this jumper here. Take that off. Adios. Well, that's pretty gnarly looking. I'll clean that up, and then we're going to jump those two together. So here's the white-yellow mod happening in real time. Modified. And we might want to put some electrical tape on that since it does have a little bit of metal hanging out right there. But that's the white-yellow mod. Our next wire, this yellow wire with a red stripe, this goes to the starter button on the right-hand control. And then the green wire with the red stripe, this is for the neutral switch, neutral light from the neutral switch. So that's all the wires, and this is what everything's going to plug into. And we're going to reference this stuff back when we start plugging other things into it. So let's grab the next bundle and start plugging things in. All right, these are the wires from the left-hand switch on this bike. We have a gray wire. We said that was flasher relay. Turn signals, which are orange and blue, and then light green is horn. So let's go ahead and plug all those together right here. And when I'm doing this, I want to try to keep my wires kind of cleanly routed to each other. I just don't want to randomly plug things. I'm going to be conscious of how those wires are kind of flowing together here. There's an orange. Here's my light blue. Here's my light blue. And then my light green for the horn, which is right here. Horn plugged in. All right, that cluster is done. Let's get that next cluster. The next bundle we're working with is the wires for the right-hand switch. And this one's a little bit more interesting because there are some things we're going to use and some things we're not going to use. So let's start with this yellow-red wire in here. And I noticed on this bike, see this green stuff in here? Someone actually has used a little bit of grease in here to help, the terminals, keep things from rusting. You can always use a little bit of dielectric grease or just some high temp grease to help. So I'm using the screwdriver here on the back of the terminal to help push it in place. That's kind of a trick there to help them click in. So that one's wired up. Next one we're looking at is the black wire with the white stripe. That is the kill switch wire, and I'm going to kind of untangle it a little bit cleaner over here. Run it next to this one. Here's our black wire with white stripe. Again, you see how I'm kind of taking the wires and trying to route them where they're nice and clean, coming together. And in this case, I will have to use the screwdriver to push it together. Nope, see, it didn't quite go. Okay, what do we got left? We're talking about the white and blue wire. These are actually the control wires from the headlight that go to the actual headlight that we disassembled. So we're going to put those aside because we have removed the headlight already. So those are not going to get plugged into anything quite yet. We have the yellow wire and the white wire with a yellow stripe. Now, we just did the jumper mod here. What originally happened was the wires came out of the harness, they went into the switch, and when you hit the headlight on, it basically made this happen here. So these wires are dead. They're not going to do anything. We can leave them or we can just kind of cut them off. I think in this situation, I'm going to just cut them off because they're never going to be used again. So we're done. And they're dead. They're not hooked to anything. So they're dead part of the system. Adios. Okay, what do we got left here? So we have two blacks. Blacks are 12 volt positive, and we have this brown with white stripe. Let's do the brown. Brown white stripe is power to the tail lights. So when the headlights turn on, the headlight also turns on. So we have this one here, the jumper, coming together like that. And we have the two blacks that are both 12 volt positive power. We're gonna go here. You can see how one's a little bit longer than the other, so we'll put one on the front side. Again, you can see how handy a small screwdriver is to push those together. And we have another one. We'll come to the back side with that one because we have a little bit of extra wire there. And if we have to move these around, you know, with other things plugged in, we can always unplug them and rearrange them. All right, those are the two control boxes plugged in, and we'll get those plugged into the headlight at the very, very end. Let's do this one. This one only happens to have a single, this is for the actual light, gauge lights. Again, different bikes have different gauge configurations, and this one's pretty simple on this side. We have the brown and white wire, which we talked about a moment ago. Here's our brown and white again with a multi-port terminal here. So we're going to go ahead and plug that one back in, feel the click, and we have a dark green wire. Dark green is ground. We have two ground connections here. It doesn't matter which one I plug it into because all grounds are the same and all grounds are metal. All grounds are metal. So you can already see we're getting a little tangled here. So we might unplug and kind of rearrange some stuff. I don't like how that one crossed over there like that. So, you know, this is where you have the opportunity to kind of arrange things where they're a little bit cleaner. That's better. Okay, that gauge is done. Let's do this one, the next kind of mass of wires here. Let's do this green-red, which is the neutral light, because there's only definitely one of those wires. Here it is, neutral light wire. Click. Let's do this other brown-white wire. Again, more brown-whites. That is gauge lights, and here's that last terminal on that multi-pin terminal coming together with that wire. We have orange and blue turn signal lights. You'll see these a lot because this goes up to the little blinker that's in the gauge face. So let's do the orange one first. Right here, here's orange. Click, and we have blue right next to it. Light blue. Very common Honda color codes for turn signals. We're left with another green. Green is ground. What do you know? We got another ground right here. Put it right next to the one we had before. Again, all grounds are the same, and same with a solid black wire, 12 volt positive. So let's plug it into, here's our 12 volt positive again. Let's plug it into the back side here, that one. Get it on the way. Okay, so what are we left with? We got this is the brake light switch. Again, solid black wire, and then we have this green and yellow wire. So solid black, we just did it again. Last terminal, here it is. Solid black. That one needs to be pushed in with the screwdriver. There it goes. And green, yellow. There you are. We haven't used you yet. There you are. Even this one's kind of like yellow, green, green, yellow, but we know by the process of elimination and the fact that that's the brake switch. That's feeling a little loose. Here's a trick you can do if you start to feel the terminals are loose. Got my needle nose pliers. I'm just gonna give that a little squeeze. Tighten up that terminal there so the wire plugs in nice and firm like that. Okay, cool. All right, what are we left with? We're left with turn signals right here. Again, blue wire for light blue for the turn signal. We happen to have another pigtail down here. Now remember, this would have been coming out of the headlight bucket by now. And then this side, same thing. Black wire, but it has an orange tracer on it. It's gonna go into the orange bundle over here somewhere. So we're gonna kind of run around the bottom. Again, if I have to move these around when I put the headlight bucket on like where the pins go into each terminal on the multi-port terminals, that's it. All right, so here is our bird's nest assembled so far. And that's basically all the wires that are here on the bike. What we're left with is our headlights. This is our low beam, the white, high beam on the blue, and a couple ground connections that we saw with the with the nuts that are inside of the headlight bucket. So those will get bolted in, all go to the solid green. Again, we have that one there, and we have another one we haven't even touched yet. Where is it? There it is. Whole more extra ground connections right there. We also have that. Look at that. What's that plugged into? That is plugged into nothing. So I think that's a redundant wire for the parking system. So in examining the wires here, we do have one wire here, the solid brown wire, that is plugged into, well, nothing. We have found on various wiring harnesses that Honda use that there are sometimes accessories, especially lighting accessories for the bikes sold in other countries, that had extra wiring. So just because a wire is present doesn't mean there's always something plugged into it. In this situation, in a 350 harness, this brown wire would have been for a parking light inside the headlight lens that was not really sold in the US like this. So basically on this bike, this wire does nothing. You don't have to do anything with it. But if you come across a wire you're not sure about, you can always look it up in the wiring diagram of your service manual to be like, what does this plug into? Because everything else is already plugged in, right? We've gone ahead and put our headlight bucket back on, and we've gone ahead and got everything reconnected and through here. And our last bits are actually to plug the headlight lens in. We're gonna start with the high beam where we have the dual connector. One goes to the switch, and the other to our indicator up top here. Dark blue, dark blue. We have our white, which is our low beam. And we have our final ground wire in green, and that's our last ground terminal here. Come on. And that's that. So we take our bird's nest now, we kind of tuck it up out of the way. And I'm gonna put the headlight back in place. Don't forget about the hook on the top here, the little notch there. And that's that. That's how that all comes together right there. Oh, hook didn't quite grab. There it is. We are all back together. In fact, that was the wire we took out for the white yellow jumper mod right there. I think one thing I didn't point out when we put the bucket on, we just kind of fished all the wires back through the hole in the headlight bucket as a group, as a bundle. We kind of just pulled them through. Just be careful when you do that nothing gets unplugged, because we did actually unplug a few things along the way. We have to double check everything to make sure they were all plugged in. But that's another way you can do it, or you can unplug it, run it through the bucket, tuck it in there, etc. But we're all back together. We should be good to go. I hope this video has taken a lot of the intimidation factor and anxiety of all the wires in the headlight bucket and switch assemblies out of the equation for you. It's not really the Twilight Zone. It's not really the black hole of mystery, and the bird's nest is actually a little more easy to take apart and put back together than you might think. So that was the whole point of this video, because all these bikes are kind of built in the same way, and one time or another you're going to have this headlight apart and you're going to be dealing with this the bird's nest of wires. So it's definitely easier to do than you might initially anticipate. So with that said, I'm Brendan with Common Motor, common-motor.com on the internets. Thanks for watching. Make sure you follow us on Instagram and Facebook. Subscribe to our newsletter via our website, and of course, subscribe to this YouTube channel down below. Don't forget to ring the bell, and we'll see you next time.